All right, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Ideal Me. I'm Lamar Whitby, and today, um, our guest is NCCU alum, um, leader of the community, uh, Durham law enforcement, Mr. J.R. Sharp. So, thank you, J.R. for joining us.
Absolutely, man. Glad to be here, brother. Glad to be here.
Cool, cool, cool. So, what made you go to Central?
So man, this is a crazy story actually, but I'm from originally from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, so I always been close to the area. And play football at East Chapel Hill High School, which was not a very prestigious high school to play at, but I guess I was talented enough to kind of draw some interest of some very good schools. And one of my friends who actually I played ball with in college or in high school and college was Kenneth Broadway. So Kenneth Broadway Jr. His dad was a head coach at North Carolina Central University. So having that connection with him and trying to give that a shot, I kind of want to explore some other options really outside of North Carolina and some other places that I really had major interest in going to. But once I sat down with Coach Broadway, man, and he was a legendary coach, um, we had an opportunity to kind of share some stories, and he kind of for him to share his leadership style and the plans he had for me, the plans he had for the program. And I couldn't turn down a full scholarship to go to North Carolina Central University. So it was a beautiful place, beautiful experience, and I'm glad I took that opportunity to embark on that journey. In historical Black University and college football, man, was great.
Cool, cool, cool. I'm glad you did it, man. You just knowing you during that time, like you were the voice.
Yeah, man, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
you're a voice
Yeah,
on like so, and you were one of those people who, you had respect from both sides of the ball, all around campus. Like you just all around just solid guy. So much respect to you.
I appreciate that.
But moving forward, from NCCU law enforcement, how did that happen? Like why?
Um, that's something that I always, even going into college, that's something that I always wanted to do. I kind of developed that dream and the aspiration in high school. We had a program, which is pretty nationally known. It's called AVID. That stands for Advanced via Individual Determination. And it's a group. I was in it all through high school. They kind of get you ready for college prep and things of that nature. So going into college, they were kind of pushing you to say, "Hey, look, it's nothing wrong with going to college, not knowing what your specialization wants to be and not knowing what your major is going to be. But if you do, it's easy to kind of get on the career track, go as far as where you want to be." So it's something that I knew would easily translate in law enforcement, being a part of a team, being a part of a unit. I was always a vocal guy. Um, so being part of a team and a unit, being told what to do. As you
Right.
know, you as well being a collegiate athlete, it's easy when somebody's telling you that, hey, you got to get up, you got to go to work, go work out. You got to be here for this meeting. You got to be here for that meeting. You need to execute. You got to follow this playbook. You got to follow this plan. Um, and law enforcement is very similar in regards to the policies and the plays. It's kind of and football kind of really covers and translates over to everything in life, but especially law enforcement. Being disciplined. Being somewhere at a certain time, following rules and policies and playbooks and executing. So it's very key. So that's what I got into it. I had an SRO who was also very, very influential. His name was Rex Gibson, retired from Chapel Hill PD. He was very influential in my life. Another African American. He was very well known in the town. Very prestigious career, and he retired. So he had a big influence on me as well. So
Nice, nice, nice. So you being law enforcement, our just to go a little peel back some more layers. And you speak about being an African American, right? And looking at the I can't say the current climate of our country, but I can say what in a lot of ways what always has been, right?
mhm.
And being a person, being a black man, um, on the other side of the law, right? Because we go into our prisons, we go into our jails, we see faces that look like ours. So
Mhm.
um what is that like? What is that thought process of being law enforcement while also being a Black male?
I think it's a very, like we talked about before we started this session, it's a very special case, man. I was watching actually your Instagram live you were doing earlier this week with one of your classmates, and you talking about
Oh, cool.
being in being in the profession where you're not the majority, where you're the minority, so it's a little different. But it's a very special case because you have an opportunity um, to influence people who look like you, and it gives them a familiar face. And you get we get the chances to break those stereotypes and stigmas of law enforcement. And we got to change the dynamic of it. I talk about all the time, even when I'm training the academy and teaching. I see so many people, so many different faces, so many different cultures, religions, creeds, and I'm like, our departments have to mirror the communities in which we serve. And Durham is a very, very diverse community, but it's very heavily populated with African American people. So I'm thankful that the departments here are transitioning over the years to being, very, very diverse and having a lot of African American males and females in the profession. Because I think it's very influential to have that type of impact on your community, coming from that community, coming from some of those same burdens, those cultural stereotypes, those crossing paths of people who may have had the same upbringing as you have in regards to poverty, low education, things of that nature. So being able to rap with them and understand them and be able to sympathize and empathize with what they're going through on a cultural level, as well as a psychological level, because you may have been there before. So it's very comforting to deal with somebody who looks like you in regards to that.
Cool. You had a interesting situation. I can't say
Mm-hmm.
recently, but you had a very interesting situation. Um, you while protecting the servant,
Mm-hmm.
you took one for the team. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can you, as much as you can, do you
mm-hmm.
mind, can you share that?
Yeah. There, it's a very obviously it's still kind of ongoing in litigation, so I'm very limited in how I say
Of
about
course.
it. But I was recently, I can say recently, but within the past year, I was assaulted. I was ambushed, and I was actually off duty. It was early morning and wasn't really expected. Put up to a stoplight, and two individuals who are unbeknownst to me, who I do not know, who I've never met before, who I've never seen before. They assaulted me and shot my vehicle up. I was hit twice or once and grazed once. But by the grace of God, I was able to get out of there. I said the Lord, man. I don't care what everybody says. Your training and everything else, but it was God who protected me and shielded me from that assault, man. So I was able to succumb some injuries, but I was able to get out of there safely and get some help, render some medical aid to myself long enough for other first responders to get on scene. I was very thankful for two very brave citizens who stopped. There's so many who drove by me that were watching me bleed and trying to weigh people down, but it was two people two citizens that stopped first to assist me. So I'm very thankful to get out of the situation. Something I never expected would happen in this career. I've always prepared for it, but you never think it's going to happen to you. But mentally, I prepared for that situation. And I think I attribute a lot of that to my survival because I prepared mentally for something like that to happen. I didn't want it to happen to me. Hopefully it never happens again. But glad to be here, to still be able to live, to be able to share time with my family. Also be another testament for people to come after me, people who are under my tutelage as well. And I train a lot of young officers in this career field, so be able to kind of share that experience with them to overcome that mental and physical aspect of surviving a situation of such. So I'm very thankful to be here.
No, I'm thankful that you're here too, man. You during that and even the aftermath, even just during the situation after it's over, being a husband, being a father,
Mm-hmm.
um, Where does your mind go?
Um, I'm a big family man, so I have two girls and been married for almost 10 years now. Um, it's
Congratulations.
Yeah, man, thank you, man. So it's it's very heartfelt, man. In those moments, that's the first thing I think about is my family. I think about seeing my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old, and seeing my wife, and that drive of getting back to them. And so it's very tough because that night there was a lot of guilt, I should say, even though it wasn't my fault. There was a lot of guilt and regret for putting my family through that situation, even though, like I said, I didn't have any control over it. But the thought of leaving my two young girls without a father, leaving my wife to raise two girls without a dad, and for her confidant and her husband, best friend, not to be here. There's a lot of guilt that I first felt about that, because I'm like, I'm putting myself in this arena to be assaulted, to be hurt. Although I don't sign up to be shot and attacked and punched and stabbed and killed. I guess there's a higher percentage of that happening. No one going into this profession. So there was a lot of feeling of guilt and regret and selfishness that because I want to embark on this profession, that I put my family at risk, and that's something that we just have to accept. It's hard to, but my wife has accepted it, and she accepted it before kids, before me getting in this career field. So she kind of knew the possibility of it happening, but it's tough, man, to kind of look at girls in the face and try to explain that to them, and explain that that, because my 6-year-old is she's very, very smart. Even my 3-year-old, and they had questions like, why did someone shoot you, daddy? Why did someone want to hurt you? Why did bad guys want to hurt you? And having to really try to explain that, good versus evil, good versus bad, and and it's tough, man.
Definitely. So how do you, because you say you train other officers, right? You train other officers, and um, beyond training other officers, the two little ones that you have, how do you train these people, or give the example of like coping and dealing with that?
Well, the saying I always say, and this, mental health. I'm glad that mental health has kind of come along now, and it's starting to be more talked about. It wasn't even 10 years ago in law enforcement. I've been in the game for 10 years, and it wasn't even talked about then. But I talk to young officers, and I tell them, man, like, the biggest thing is the most common saying in mental health, and I'm sure you've heard it, is it's okay to not be okay. That's something that that's a saying that we really have to really embark on, and really kind of we really got to take that in. It's okay to not be okay. So in law enforcement, I tell the young people that you're going to experience things that the community, that normal people just don't see. You know what I mean? Your normal citizens are the people who are not in that first responder realm, that are not in firefighter, EMS, law enforcement. They're not going to see what we see on every day. You're dealing with trauma every single day you go to work. You're wearing that hat of being so many different career fields. You're a counselor. You're a father. You're a mentor to somebody. You're a counselor. You're a first responder. You're a medical aid. You're wearing so many hats. And so in law enforcement, or in a first responder realm, when you're dealing with trauma, you're going to be exposed to things that, again, the normal person is not going to see, whether it be death, suicide, assault, rape, murder, arson. I mean, there's so many things that I've seen, and you have to be okay. You have to be willing to talk about those things, and understand that you're not crazy, because you're thinking about that call too much. You saw that 3-year-old girl who's drowned, and 2 weeks later, you just can't get it out of your head. You can't get her face out of your head. And to be willing to talk to somebody, and be comfortable talking to somebody, and telling them, man, that call 2 weeks ago that I saw, like, it still bothers me. I'm having some feelings of just guilt, sadness, anger, and talking those things out. So we have to make it okay for people to talk about those issues, and talk through their triggers, and things that are causing them undue stress. I mean, it's okay to do that.
That it is. And that takes a lot from a man
Mm-hmm.
to say. because that's something that's uncommon for us. Just stereotypically, we don't discuss that. We don't like you said, it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We don't discuss that. And especially being in your line of work and coming from athletics,
Mm-hmm.
you don't show weakness. You don't show
Yeah,
weakness. You always have to be the toughest one on the field, off the field, whatever. Like, get it together, and then quickly,
absolutely.
right? So for you to
Mm-hmm.
be in that position, um, definitely much respect, and uh, yeah, I admire that 100%, 100%. How
Yeah,
do
and
oh, I'm sorry.
just to piggyback off of what you just said there, man. I think it goes deeper than even than what you said. Even in sports, your coaches are yelling at you, "Hey, man, get it together. You got to be mentally tough. You can't break down." But I think it
Right,
even goes back to our childhood. You think about it, how men are raised. But you better stop that crying, man. You better man up. Stop crying. Stop being a punk because because you're upset and you're crying. And I think we've been raised to kind of not show those emotions, to be strong, to not to be weak, and not to uh, cry, and not to have not to express those emotions of sadness and being upset. So it starts when we're young, man, and just carries over. So that's a good point.
definitely does. We're socialized in a different way,
Mm-hmm. That's
in a
facts.
totally different way, and we're not raised to, like you said, to cry and show that sort of emotion. But what really changes, and thing that I've noticed too, is even having my own daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's a different.
Yeah,
I
bro.
don't care how tough you are.
Yeah.
When you look at that little girl, or in your case, those little ladies,
Mm-hmm.
that does something to you.
It's different, bro. It's different, man. It's different being a girl dad, man. It's definitely different being a girl dad. So special.
Definitely. You you're out in the community a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
you see the faces and the expressions and the emotions of everyone, of the people. How do you how do you talk about the relationship that that exists or doesn't exist between law enforcement and the community?
Um, I think going into the community, I think we talk about we will harp on the relationship that doesn't exist because we know there's a very small portion, of those connections that are being done. I would well to change that. I think overwhelmingly there's more people appreciate and have a relationship with law enforcement, a positive interaction with law enforcement, than the latter. I think that we've seen a lot of media waves to kind of come in and push their own agendas to say that it doesn't exist. But let's say historically, um, with between law enforcement and the Black community, I kind of even keep it to that microscopic, um, because that's where I'm going. I'm not going into these rich culture white neighborhoods, blue collar neighborhoods, to have to build a relationship because those relationships were historically already built, knowing that. This profession is predominantly white, so that relationship between the white community and law enforcement is already established. But we know how rough the upbringing and those the makeup between the Black community and law enforcement. So I go to the Black community and I talk about the relationship that doesn't exist and why it doesn't exist. We talk about those stereotypes. I talk about how law enforcement started and why the community is so shunned from law enforcement. We talk about the things that they see in the media, but we also talk about um, changing it from the forefront. It's it was common, years ago to see, law enforcement officers come through the neighborhoods, get out of their cars and talk to people. They know Miss Betty, they know where she lives, they know her grandsons, they know her people, they know when her birthday is.
Right.
Um, and we got to get back to that. We got to get back to not just responding to those communities when there's a incident. Getting out of your cars and just talking to people and having and building those relationships, man. It starts, and they got to see you not only in just that uniform, they got to see you out of that uniform as well. So a lot of the events that I go to, some of them are in uniform. A lot of times I go out of uniform, so they can see me one as a professional, but they can also see me as a person. So um, and it's both ways. That relationship has to start on both ends. It can't just be law enforcement. I mean, the community has to kind of bring something to the table as well and be able to understand and accept their faults, and work on, building those solid relationships in order to make it work. Because, I serve the community, you know what I mean? I'm a part of the community, but I also serve the community, but the
Right.
community has to also serve the community as well. So we all play a part in making that relationship work. So I think that's where I start.
Okay. So let's slide in one more piece.
Mhm.
So we talk about that relationship. How do we slide in mental health within those two things, right? You have law enforcement, you have the community, and let's
Mhm.
slide mental health in. What does that look like for you?
I think it looks like uh, being transparent. You know what I mean? Also reaching out to other mental health professionals who have those resources and who have those professional certifications to kind of speak on things. Because although I experience a lot of mental trauma, and I'm speaking to a therapist and things of that nature, and I have obviously experienced all those things. I'm not a professional, but I can only speak to my experience. So I think if we partner with a lot of mental health professionals and different, agencies, and we are able to bring them in and kind of talk about some of the things that are going on in the law enforcement profession, and also what the community is experiencing. If we're able to, make it okay to talk about those things on both levels. Because at the end of the day, whether you're law enforcement, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're EMS, or whether you're just a normal community person, we all experience trauma. We all process trauma at the end of the day. And
Right.
how we process it could be totally different. But in the day, we're all victims of mental health. So um, making mental health important. I think you got to do that with bringing these mental health professionals, start investing more. People talk so much about defunding the police and all this other type of stuff. We got to be investing in those mental health fields, bro. Like I'm telling you, mental health is so slept on. And Lamar, you know this, but it's so slept on, man. And it's like I think that's the missing piece to what America is going through, man. Because everything can be attributed back to mental health and the way we process things and our emotions. And it's overlooked, man. So I think that's how we do it. We got to pair with those mental health professionals and get them involved. I think that's where we start, bro.
So when you say you talked about the funding of the police,
Mm-hmm.
the funding of law enforcement, so you think there's one space that definitely needs more funding?
Yeah, I think that's where it needs funding. People when you start talking about, and I'm not to go off on a tangent. I know this is specifically I can kind of really bring around full
No,
circle,
go
but
for it. Do you think?
defunding the police. I know what the term means. I know I know the main meaning behind of it. It's just the saying kind of throws it off. And what we're seeing on a law enforcement level is that we're losing a lot of funding. We're losing a lot of positions. That's what's happening. We're losing a lot of positions. They're taking away a lot of positions, even here more so in this city, and they're filling them with now these unarmed responders and things of that nature. But the thing is that what we don't realize on a bigger scale is what that's doing to the morale and what that's doing for the normal flow of law enforcement. Because if I'm working on a 10-man squad and now you're taking positions and we're pulling people are quitting because obviously they can go to another place work and make more money, or they're getting out of the profession altogether. We're cutting this funding, so that cuts into training, that cuts into positional salary spots to be able to go out here and do our job. So now you got a bunch of overworked officers going out here to police the community. So now we're overworked, we're stressed, we're dealing with our own trauma in regards to our home life, our work life, and now we're going out and we're trying to fix people who are sick. So now you got sick people policing other sick people, and it doesn't really work, man, when you don't have that particular funding, when you don't have that particular manpower and ways of going to do things. Law enforcement specifically in regards to mental health, we don't see enough of mental health involved in law enforcement. I can go on a call and I can see, a 16 to 17-year-old, male and female who've been shot on a drive-by, dead. I get there, put up crime scene tape, get witness statements from everybody I can dealing with. Now I'm dealing with people crying, moms, dad, people are outraged. There's so much going on. You're trying to get, the right resources in place. We're trying to get investigations involved. We're trying to get crime scene investigation involved. And there's so much going on. Now, It's a chaotic scene. Now, once that scene is under control and we clear it, the coroner comes to get the bodies, medical examiners get the body. Let's say we're out there for maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours. After that, you know, and I work a 12-hour shift. After me being out there 3-4 hours, I clear that call and I go right back to work. I don't get a chance to say, you know what, I just experienced something that's extremely traumatic. I just held a, you know, a 16-year-old girl in her arms as she took her last breath. I need a couple days, man, to be off.
Right.
That doesn't happen. I can't do that because that takes another man off the streets to man the area to make the community safe. I can't do that because we don't have the manpower to do it. We don't have the avenues to say, you know what, you just experienced a traumatic event. Take the rest of the night off. Let's process it. Let's get you to FMRT, speaking with a therapist, let you process that, and then, you know, do a mental evaluation before you're ready to come back to work. That doesn't happen, man. We go from call to call to call to call. And I think defunding the police, I think, hurts that. If we're bringing in professionals to kind of get the training and the mental training and the you know, to process these things, then it works great, man. But it's just it's a big deal. I know I kind of was rambling with that, man.
Nah, that was good.
Hopefully I made some sense.
No, you made perfect sense. That's interesting that you make that point where, you know, you experience something traumatic, but then you go back to work. That's just like coming straight to the job and you just had a fight with your wife. Now you're all frustrated. Like, how are you going to respond, like, to your coworkers or whomever on the street? Right. So let's say you had a fight with your wife, you just had a situation in the community, and now you have to go deal with another one. Whoa. Whoa. I've never
it's tough, man, because it forces you to and it's something that we as men, we all do this, you know, and I'm sure you heard the term, you know, within your studies in mental health, but it forces us to compartmentalize, you know what I mean? To say, you know what, I had a big fight with my wife, but I can't let that affect my job. It's easy to say that.
Right.
But if you just had a fight with your wife, trust me, you thinking about that your whole 12 hours until you get back home, because it's not right. Now you're going back and forth, y'all, you know what I mean? She probably texting you back and forth, y'all texting about it. It's still affecting you. But you're forcing yourself to compartmentalize those emotions and those feelings. So you suppress it. And then you go to another call and you experience something traumatic, but you know, hey, I can't be thinking about this call. I can't be thinking about the trauma that I just saw. I can't be thinking about that because I got to go back to work and I got to deal with this. You know, I got to go deal with this person who just had, you know, their car broken into. So I got to compartmentalize that. So now you just suppressing it, and it just builds up. It builds up. And all of a sudden, when that trigger snaps, you know, and it's happened to me before. You know what I mean? I went to a call where I experienced it was a 14-year-old high school student, a male who had hung himself. And I was there for probably about 2 hours, and it was extremely traumatic, man. It's one of those calls that I'll never forget. I talk about this call all the time because I talk about embracing his father and holding his dad, who was like the dude was like 6'6", 350 pounds, man. And that dude, it just, all his weight, I could feel all of his weight fall into my arms because that was his only son. And trying to help them cope with that was extremely tough. And I left that call and I went to a call in RTP where a guy had like a minor scratch on his car. And he was upset that it took me so long to get there. And I snapped on him. I was like, dude, you have no idea what I just came from, what I just experienced. And you're upset about a little scratch on your Mercedes Benz. Like this is not important, bro. Like that's what you're dealing with is not important. If you knew what I just dealt with, then you have some respect to know that I'm trying to do everything I can to get here on time, that, you know, to help solve your problems, man. But it's tough, bro. It's tough, man. It's tough.
So how do we make that happen? How do we, like you said, instead of defunding, like how do we add that? Not that you know all the answers, but how do we incorporate more mental health and that sort of thing? Like, how does that work?
I think how we do it is it's tough to say this, man. It's tough to really make it something. We talk about the word mandatory, right? We talk about mandatory. Making stuff mandatory is tough because you don't want to force people into having to see a therapist. But I think we incorporate it in our policies and our procedures and our general orders to make it, once you experience a very traumatic event, that we make it almost routine that you need to, to be exposed to some type of clinical health specialist that can deal with mental health, and it's not just a one-time thing. You know what I mean? Making it okay to bring in these specialists to kind of talk with law enforcement, and make it a point to say, you know what, guys, you're the beacon of light. You're the warriors. You're the ones who have to go out there to, to put on this armor to protect the community. But if you're not healthy, then you can't help somebody else, bro. You can't help somebody else, when you need help yourself. So understanding that, like, I have to be whole and I have to be healthy physically and, more importantly, mentally, to go out to serve somebody who is not okay, healthy, mentally or physically, is key, bro. Like, at the end of the day, we got to make it mandatory, bro. Like, you got to make it okay for, that's what it boils down to. Like, it's not like people get this thought of like, talking with a therapist or getting involved in, somebody that's in, clinical specialist in mental health. Like, you're sitting back on the couch and your feet are in the air and the person's just listening to you talk, man. It's not like that. You know what I mean? Like, the sessions that I have, man, are just, sometimes it's on the phone. Maybe just picking up the phone call and say, I'm talking to my therapist. I'm like, man, I'm not having a good day today. Like, and them just listening on the phone. It's like having somebody that's a voice of reason to talk to process those things. And sometimes to agree with you and sometimes to not agree with you. And sometimes, more importantly, just to listen, bro, just to listen to people vent. Like, we got to make it mandatory, B. That's what we got to do. That's just what we got to do. We got to make it mandatory. Like, we can't keep tiptoeing around. We can't keep tiptoeing around this anymore, man. Like, we got to start making it. We got to start making it number one. And now for it to work, bro, we can't just keep tiptoeing around.
Would it be fair to say that many incidents would never happen if that were the case?
100%. 100%. That is 100%. To kind of give you an example of what that looks like. So we've seen over the last, 5-7 years, we've seen a lot of, very controversial police cases, and I don't have to name any more specific, all the ones that exist. And then the response that we see from that is, we see this uproar from the community, and we start seeing these protests and these riots, and some are peaceful, some are not so peaceful. We start seeing these agitators get involved, so we start seeing those emotions, right? So now the community is processing. They're dealing with trauma. So let's say specifically, let's talk about George Floyd, because that's one of the most recent ones, right? We see George Floyd, we see that case, and it stirs up a lot of anger. So that stirs up a lot of triggers from people. So whether that's from the 60s and the civil rights era, to see how law enforcement were dealing with people of color, or whether it's somebody specifically that's had a situation like that with law enforcement, and now they see that on TV and it triggers their emotions. So now the community's up, and we're playing that over and over again. We see George Floyd over and over and over again in the community, and we see people that are upset on the civilian side. They're upset. They're protesting. They're breaking things. They're processing. That's their way of. Most of them, because some of them, I believe, are just agitators and out there to break in the Nike store and steal free shoes and break into Walmart. You got those people out there, but you have people who are really emotionally invested in things of that nature, as to how law enforcement is dealing with the community. So people uproar. Now you got law enforcement, and people are throwing things at them. People are, most of them are there doing the right thing. I work in Durham, North Carolina. I don't work in Minnesota. So for somebody in Durham to be hauling rocks and shooting firecrackers and throwing glass bottles at you in Durham over something that happened in Minnesota, it's very hard, because I didn't do anything to anybody. And there's a lot of people who are behind me and beside me who didn't do anything to anybody else. But we've been casted out in this light because we are law enforcement. So we're being treated just as one individual who decided to go rogue, to kind of go off and do something on his own. We're getting, I guess, the residual and the consequences for someone else's actions. In some situations, rightfully so. So now I'm having to go out here and I have to work these riots and these protests, 7 days in a row, very little sleep. So
Right.
I'm stressed out. My wife is at home dealing with the kids by herself, getting the kids ready for school. I'm sleeping in. I got late night. So now it's creating um, tension between us at home. All right.
Right.
So now I'm dealing with that at home, not being here to see my kids and dealing with the personal issues, and then having to go to work and be overworked and be tired, and not getting any relief, not getting any type of respect and I guess morale boost from the upper echelon, while still taking beatings from the community. So now I'm upset and I'm doing all this, and now you're forcing me. You give me a baton, you give me all this riot gear, and a gas mask and 40 Mike rounds and beanbag rounds, and you give me all this gear to go out here and protect property. So now what do you think is gonna happen? Now I'm gonna take out all of my emotions that I'm dealing with at home, that I'm dealing with at work, I'm dealing with all that anger, and now we see that being taken out on the community.
Right.
And it's just not healthy, bro. You know what I mean? And then that's when we start to see those overuses of force, and we start to see, um, we just start to see bad situations, evolve, man. It's just because its emotions are tied up.
That that's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And that's something that we don't necessarily hear too much,
Mm-hmm.
especially from a person in your position.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So the title of the show is Ideal Me. Looking at yourself, looking at your career, looking at uh just physically, mentally, spiritually, what have you. What is the ideal version of you? What does when you say ideal me, what does that look like?
Um, ideal me, man, is I always talk about the three things like holistically. It's being uh physically healthy, it's being mentally healthy, and it's being spiritually healthy, man. So the ideal me is being physically healthy, being in good shape, being in good standards, doing obviously eating the right things, training my body, getting quality rest, not allowing the negative energy to be uh, a part of me, and it's having that positive energy, being okay. Yeah, be
Daddy
quiet
dude.
because okay. Um, so we talk about being physically healthy first. I mean that's important. Training your body, and what you're putting in your body, what you're eating, those things. Obviously, okay. Go ask mom to help you because daddy's in the meeting right now. It's open. Go ask mom to help you. Go. 1 second, bro.
You fine.
Yeah. Go outside. Go in the yard with that so it doesn't spill. So being physically fit is first. Obviously, then you have the mental aspect. So preparing yourself mentally, and what that looks like is working through your emotions, processing those things, having healthy conversations. For me, it's having healthy conversations with my wife, being transparent about how I feel, communicating, which is key, and then having a healthy relationship with my therapist, or a confidant that I'm dealing with in regards to the mental health realm, in the program. So being able to kind of process those feelings, and being mentally okay, knowing that when I'm having a bad day, being able to communicate that with somebody who's gonna give me some type of feedback, who is gonna listen to. Girls, hey, I need you guys to go back inside because I'm busy right now. Go back inside. You being loud. Go. And then thirdly, me, and most important is being spiritually healthy. So having a very solid relationship with whoever you deem to be your supreme being. I'm a Christian, so believing in Christ and having a healthy relationship with Christ is always it's top for me. So having a healthy relationship with Christ, being involved with people who are also spiritually healthy. So talking to my pastor, talking to small groups, and having that, that being the center of my life, which should be number one, I should say. Being spiritually healthy is always number one. Like I think that takes that takes precedence over that alone affects your mental and physical
Right.
as well. So that's the ideal me, being, physically fit, mentally fit, and then spiritually fit. That's what the ideal me. That's what it looks like.
Well, Mr. Sharp, um, yeah, thank you for everything you're doing in the community. Thank you for just remaining to just a stand up dude. So we appreciate you joining the show. And yeah, ideal me, it is a crazy. It is a wrap.
I appreciate it, bro.
Oh yeah, I need a steak too. It's been a while since I had something off the grill from you.
Hey man, let me know, bro. We can do it, man. We can do it. You see, I got that thing sitting. I got that smoker sitting right over there. We can do it, man. It's been a minute, man. We can definitely do that, man. I'm so excited, man, for what you're doing and you getting, what do how far along before you get like your license and stuff like that? You got a while,
Nah, a few
huh?
months. A few months,
Few
like
months, man,
yeah, a
dude.
few months.
That's
So,
gonna
but
that's gonna
someone
be that's gonna be key, man.
this time next year I'll be rocking and rolling.
That's good, man. Keep me posted, man, because I'm definitely interested, man. I definitely want to see, what I'm saying, what you got to bring to the table, man. Like it's like I said, Lamar, man. Like when I heard you were doing that, man, hit me. I was like, man, that's so dope because it's something that like it's something that I wish obviously I can still do it, but everybody tells me all the time, man. Like they're like, man, how are you? I was in class this week with it was like a group of 12 of us, um, and I told my story about being ambushed to them, and they were like, man, I would have never known that something like that would have happened to you because the way you carry yourself. And it's just like that meant a lot to me because going through something like that, the normal person would have just would allow that to crush, allow it to crush them. You know what I mean? Like I have
Yeah,
my days, I have my bad days. But my good days outweigh the bad, and I believe in having that. It's all about like again, being the ideal me. Like I know when I'm off. If I'm off physically, I'm like, man, I gotta go to the gym. If I know I'm off mentally, I'm not okay, I'm having a bad day, like expressing that to somebody, say, you know what, I'm not having a good day and it's okay. Maybe I don't need to come to work today. I need to take a day off and just take a mental day because I'm feeling off. And then spiritually, when I'm not connected, with the center of Christ and I'm not in the word, I'm not, involved in the community, and excuse me, not involved with the community, my church, in that spiritual realm, I know when it's off. So being able to recognize those signs and symptoms, man, and they were like, dude, that's powerful. Like you gotta be
yeah,
in tune with you, bro. You gotta be in tune with your inner self. You're not, man. You're in trouble.
yeah. Big time, big time.